Greetings everyone and welcome to another episode of Iran Art Guide. In today's episode, we will learn about the world's earliest proto-animation. Also, we will discover a thing or two about the development of figures and characters. And as always, we'll have in-depth discussions with professional artists from Iran. Last week, I made an announcement about a new item in Iran Art Guide, which features an interesting account from the history of art in Iran. This week, we are going to learn about Shahr Sukhte, or the Burnt City.
Located in Sistan and Baluchistan province in southeast Iran, the Burnt City is a Bronze Age settlement. Since 2014, it has been a UNESCO World Heritage Site. The mysterious story of the city and its inhabitants, and especially its tragic fall, is still not fully understood. All we know is that beginning around 3200 BC, the city was one of the earliest urban settlements in the world and home to a unique civilization, quite unrelated to other Iranian civilizations. After prospering for nearly 1,000 years, the city was consumed by fire around 2100 BC. The fire must have eliminated a great deal of interesting artifacts which existed in the city, especially given the fact that the burnt city was a trade hub connecting Mesopotamia to the Indian subcontinent. However, one ingenious artifact has survived the fire, a piece of pottery discovered adorned with several images of a goat in different stages of running and jumping. When the ancient goblet is turned around, the beholder can see the illusion of a goat running and jumping. It is safe to say that the goblet discovered in the Burnt City is the earliest animation created in the world, dating back to 5,000 years ago and well before the invention of writing.
Those prehistoric artists who created the famous pottery goblet must have been geniuses, because over 5,000 years ago they came up with the idea that continuous vision can be broken down into single images. This principle was rediscovered years later, and animation artists are still using it today after millennia to create their works of art. Morteza Momayez was one such artist.
Morteza Momayez was not only an animation artist, but also a renowned graphic designer and a pioneer of visual arts in general. Born in 1935, Momayez studied painting at the University of Tehran and École Nationale Supérieure des Arts Décoratifs in Paris. Interestingly, he also learned a technique or two from Kamal al-Mulk, who featured in the previous episode of Iran Art Guide. Upon his return to Iran, Momayez served in many professional positions and as the editor-in-chief of artistic periodicals. But he was also a prolific artist, creating a large number of graphic designs, paintings, and animation films. Morteza Momayez also designed logos for Iranian organizations and companies. Most of those logos are still in use and easily recognizable by any Iranian citizen, including logos of Tehran's municipality, the Iranian Institution of Standards, and Saipa, a major automaker.
If one thing defines the artistic legacy of Morteza Momayez, it's his exploration of new art forms such as logos. Today we are going to talk to another Iranian artist who's also happy to dabble in new art forms. Meysam Barza is a concept artist who has devoted his artistic career to the creation of all kinds of comic books. Let us hear his interesting story now. Welcome to the show, Meysam.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me.
So could you please briefly tell us what comic books are?
Comic books is it's a field of painting, actually, and visual development. And it refers to the illustration of books. And that the reason that we say comic, because the first books that illustrated was very comic. And they wanted to make you laugh. But, you know, these days it just have the name of that, not the meaning. The meaning is completely changed. And many, many years ago, one of the reasons that comic books was created, it was for representing something like cinema for the people. And after that, in each decades, it has own meaning. It has, it was a kind of society feeling inside that.
So when did you enter this whole field?
When I was a teenage boy, I was wondered about some comic books like Tintin and Batman and DC Comics and all sorts of things. I was the person who loved to have some heroes in my life.
Superheroes?
Superheroes, yeah. Besides some superheroes in our, literature or in our nation, I was amazed in painting some heroes, and I followed many artists and their comic books, and it was so fascinating for me.
Now, can comic books be divided into other categories?
Yes, it can. And it really depends on the society. For example, we have comic style that comes from West, and we also have the other genre of the comics, like graphic novel, and which refers, and really we can find the good authors and artists in Europe. And also we have manga, which refers to the Japan.
So which one of the subcategories you just mentioned are you most interested in?
For me, as an artist, I really fond of graphic novels. And the reason that I chose the meaning behind that, the graphic novel, I believe, in my opinion, graphic novel has a lot of meaning inside that.
So what was the first comic book you ever created?
One of the first comic books that I worked and I really loved was the title. I just say in Persian, we can translate it, was Khatt Awwal, the first line meaning. And it refers to the war, to imposed war, Iran and Iraq. And it was a kind of subject that I really, really loved and worked. And I have a lot of sympathy. When I was a kid, I worked a lot about, tanks, bombing, and soldiers. And I loved to depict some heroes for that time,
And do we have comic books in Iran?
Not especially, we could say comic books, but one of the work that I've done that is really close to the title comic, the title was Ilya. And Ilya was an Iranian superhero. And it's about some teenage boys that want to make something and, to battle with villain in the society. It's a pretty nice comic books that you love to buy for your kid.
What is your ultimate goal in this field?
I really love to have enough time to make my own comics. Until now, I couldn't find any free time for working of that. Yeah, I really love to work on some graphic novels and finding some aspects of life and some philosophical ideas and break all borders and find new aspects in graphic novels.
believe your works have been recognized and admired at an international level as well, right?
Fubar. The name of the book was Fubar, and it was some horror. You know, it's kind of horror zombies. And
nice.
we had a team, actually. We had a team from around the world, many artists. And I was a guy from Iran who was on board with them. And I really loved that work, and it was one of the best seller in the week from New York Times magazine.
Speaking of animation films, here's a good artist that you will hear more about soon. He's sometimes described as a concept artist, which means that he creates the characters and the settings which are used in video games and other forms of digital art. In recent years, Faraz Chahniyar has held a number of master classes and workshops on character development and concept design. Combining his knowledge of human and non-human anatomies and his digital painting skills, he has created both fantastic and realistic characters. His characters, with their enticing details and catchy quirks, appear in many Iranian video games and animations. We encourage you to look up his works and view them with an imaginative squint. Our next guests on the show are Babak and Behnoud Nekouyi, two brothers who share a passion for animation.
بهنود نکویی هستم، کارگردان انیمیشن. در خدمتتونم.
من بابک نکویی هستم، تهیه کننده و کارگردان انیمیشن. خوشحالم که امروز در خدمت شما هستم.
یه وسیله برام خریده بودم، نمیدونم بهش میگفتن
گردونه مال کانون پرورشی فکر کودک.
ما اینو داشتیم، این یه سری کاغذهای خالی داشت که میشه روش انیمیت کنی. این خیلی برام جذاب بود، یعنی روی این یه سری حالا الگوهایی داشت. خب ما طبق اون الگوها خودمون هم یه سری خلاقیت به خرج میدیم، یه سری به قول معروف حالا کاراکترها و موجوداتی رو اون به ظاهر انیمیت می‌کردیم و تو این میذاش خیلی برام هیجان انگیز بود این حرکت این اتفاق تو این، و برام خیلی ساعت‌ها تو این قضیه وقت می‌ذاشتیم و سرگرم می‌شدیم. این شروع این قضیه بود. بعدها که حالا ویدیو اومده بود و به قول معروف میشد یه سری حالا تو خونه یه سری انیمیشن‌ها رو دید، خب ما چون این قضیه برامون خیلی جذاب بود، خیلی انیمیشن‌ها رو موقع باشون آشنا شده بودیم و خب برامون جذاب بود خلق همچین اتفاقی و خب خیلی بهش علاقه‌مند شده بودیم و از هم موقع تصمیم گرفته بودیم که به این قضیه وارد بشیم و خب خدا رو شکر در ادامه هم تونستیم وارد این موضوع بشیم.
خب شروع کار من از سال 1376 بود و یعنی از وقتی که به صورت حرفه‌ای وارد کار شدم به عنوان انیماتور و تا الان به صورت مداوم ادامه داشته. خب و ما استودیو گنبد کبود رو به اتفاق بهنود تو سال 86 تأسیس کردیم و از سال 86 هم تا الان همین جا و توی استودیو گنبد کبود مشغول به کار هستیم و عمده تولیداتی که داشتیم توی این مدت و کارهایی که انجام دادیم انیمیشن‌های اکثر انیمیشن دو بعدی بوده در قالب سریال و کار کوتاه و تیزرهای تبلیغاتی مشغول بودیم و با یه تیم حالا کم و بیش چند ده نفره مشغول کار هستیم و در حال حاضر هم همچنان مشغول تولید سریال و کارهای کوتاه هستیم. ولی اگر بخوام 2 تا از کارهای شاخصمون رو بگم که نسبتاً بهتر دیده شدن یا موفقیت‌های خوبی تو زمینه جشنواره‌ها و مثلا چه داخل چه خارج از ایران داشتن، یکی یه انیمیشنی ساختیم به اسم استریپی سال 2015 که این کوالیفای شد برای اسکار هم سال 2016 است و خب خیلی هم جایزه گرفت و جزو کارهایی بود که نسبتا خوب دیده شد، هم تو سطح داخلی هم بین‌المللی. یه انیمیشن کوتاه روی موسیقی رقص مجار شماره 5 برامس. بر اساس موسیقی که همه میشناسن و خیلی موسیقی معروفی ساخته شده. داستان یک کارگر یک کارخونه است که یک کار روتین میکنه، راه کردن استرایپی در از راه کردن جعبه هایی که تو کارخونه تولید میشه و یه روز علیه این مونوتونی و این تکرار و این روتین شورش میکنه و یه طرح جدیدی رو شروع میکنه کشیدن و داستان تقریبا هولوش این ماجراست.
اول خب یه سری خام بود ایدمون، ولی تو مرور تونستیم با هم یه مقدار این ایده رو کامل کنیم و تو اجرام تونستیم یه سری باز ایده رو بهش اضافه کنیم و در مجموع اینجوری یعنی ایده از یک موسیقی شروع شد.
به خاطر که می‌خواستیم بی کلام باشه برای اینکه مخاطب خارجی هم بتونه همون دقیقاً بدون واسطه اون چیزی که ما فکر می‌کنیم بهش منتقل بشه. یعنی وقتی که شما کلام رو میارید که خب خوبه، ولی وقتی که ترجمه میشه یا دوبله میشه باز بار معنایی جملات ممکنه کاملا تغییر کنه. دلم نمیخواست که اون در اصل میشه گفت واسطه‌ای که کلام ایجاد میکنه روی مخاطب بین‌المللی تأثیر بذاره. و یکی دیگه از کارهایی که اونم تقریبا میشه گفت که کاری بود که نسبتا موفق بود حالا و خوب دیده شد، یه سریالی هست به اسم روبی و جوجه ها که روبی و جوجه ها هم تقریبا مثلا توی ایران 15 تا جایزه گرفته، داخلی جایزه در من تمام جشنواره‌ای که بخش انیمیشن داشتن ما شرکت کرده بودیم، تو بخش سریال جایزه گرفته و همینطور خب تونست جشنواره انسی همون سال شرکت کنه و معمولا جشنواره انسی جزو جشنواره‌های خیلی معتبر جهانی هست، یعنی و خیلی کم سابقه است که سریال معمولا از ایران بتونه تو این جشنواره حضور پیدا کنه.
ایران به نظرم جزء مثلا حالا نمیخوام بگم مثلا 5 تا اول، واقعا جزء 10 تا کشوری که دارن تو این صنعت دارن سبکن هست. شما خیلی از تولیدات ایران الان کاملا استانداردهای جهانی رو داره، چه تو بحث انیمیشن کوتاه، چه تو بحث انیمیشن سریال، چه حتی سینمایی. یعنی ما تو همه فیلدها الان وارد شدیم. من خودم یه تجربه جالب دارم توی انسی 2 سال پیش، جشنواره انسی 2018 فرانسه من حضور داشتم. خیلی جالب بود. از ایران یه کار کوتاه 2D، یه کار کوتاه استاپ موشن، یک سریال 2D دیجیتال، یک سینمایی 2 بعدی و یک سینمای 3D حضور داشت. یعنی اینقدر تنوع، یعنی هیچ کشوری بعید میدونم کشور دیگه اینقدر، حالا کشوری که تو در لول ایران بودن یعنی با سابقه انیمیشن با مختصات ما اینقدر حضور مثلا پررنگ توی یه دوره این جشنواره معتبر داشتن، چون بحث اینه که تو کارشون به یه استانداردی بود که توی این بخش مسابقه جشنواره حضور داشتن. خب این خیلی جذاب بود. یعنی بعضی تکنیک‌ها خیلی متنوع، هم 2 بعدی تو سینمایی، هم 3 بعدی و
یعنی ما تو اینجوری بهتون بگم نزدیک 40 یا 50 تا جشنواره تا الان جشنواره خوب معتبر، جزو جشنواره معتبر انیمیشن تا حالا کارمون پذیرفته شده. تو نزدیک 10 تا یا 15 تا از این جشنواره هم جزو برگزیده ها بوده یا جایزه گرفته. و خب این جشنواره فرانسه، آلمان، بلژیک، ایتالیا، امریکا، استرالیا، کانادا و ژاپن و یه تعداد کشوری که جشنواره نسبتاً معتبری داشتن این تو این کشورها شرکت کرده. و یه نکته خیلی مهم کارمون این بود که ما سال 2015 توی پکیجی کارمون توی جشنواره‌ای کارمون انتخاب شد که به واسطه اون تو اون جشنواره تونستیم اکران جهانی داشته باشیم. یعنی درسته که کار ما کار کوتاه بود ولی کنار 11 تا کار 10 تا کار دیگه قرار گرفت، پکش شد یه پک بلند، یعنی مثل کار بلند سینمایی که تقریبا یه چیزی اولش 1 سال تو کشورهای مختلف اکران غیر جشنواره‌ای داشت، یعنی اکران سینمایی داشت که مثلا بهش میگن کامرشال دیگه، میتونستن شرکت بلیت بخرن و شرکت کنن و الان هم به صورت استریم اون پک داره توی اینترنت به هر حال نمایش داده میشه.
As I'm sure you remember from our previous episode, each week we give you a few fun facts about the history of art in Iran. And since in today's episode we have talked about little other than animation, this week's Facts of the Week will focus on animation in Iran.
The pottery goblet from circa 3000 BC that was discovered in Iran's burnt city is regarded by many as the world's first proto-animation. Modern animation became popular in Iran over the 1950s thanks to the efforts of Isfandiar Ahmadiyar, Nureddin Zarrinkir, Mortaza Momayyez, and others. The Institute for the Intellectual Development of Children and Young Adults was an early promoter of animation filmmaking in Iran. Since 1999, Iran has been hosting Tehran's International Animation Festival, which has now grown into a major animation event. The 2D animation God Loves Storks, produced in 2000, is one of the most remembered animation series in Iran, and it has acquired a nostalgic hue in Iran's popular culture over the years. Currently, the Tehran-based Sava Animation Center is the largest producer and commissioner of animation films in Iran, producing dozens, if not hundreds, of short and feature-length films each year.
Well, that's it for today's episode of Iran Art Guide. Thank you for watching us. Stay safe and take care.